"Mom, look what Mr. Caleb drew with my crayons," she shouted. Her mother, Emily, glanced at the paper and froze. Where did Mr. Caleb see this woman?" she whispered, her voice shaky. Emily stared at the drawing, her chest heaving. That woman was her sister, but her sister had died 30 years ago. A little girl's crayon gift to her quiet neighbor unlocks a hidden past, revealing buried lies for 30 years. But before we start the video, let us know where you're watching this video. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe Story Store. And please share your thoughts about this story in comment section. It was just past sunset when 7-year-old Lily burst through the front door, waving a sheet of paper in her tiny hands. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement, her braids bouncing as she ran. "Mom, look what Mr. Caleb drew with my crayons." Emily looked up from the dishes, drying her hands with a towel. "Mr. Caleb, the neighbor?" "Yeah," Lily beamed. "I left my crayons on his porch yesterday, like a present, and today he gave me this drawing." She proudly handed over the page. Emily took it with a smile, expecting a childlike sketch. But the moment her eyes landed on it, her body stiffened. The page slipped slightly from her fingers. It wasn't a random doodle, it was a portrait. Gentle, detailed, almost lifelike, of a young woman with kind eyes and long, flowing hair. A tiny heart-shaped birthmark sat near her neck. At the bottom corner, in faint pencil, was the name, Anna. Emily's knees buckled. She sat down on the couch, silent, her eyes wide and glassy. "Mom?" Lily asked, confused. "What's wrong?" Emily touched the name with trembling fingers. Her voice cracked. Where did Mr. Caleb see this woman?" "He said he just drew it from memory, from a long time ago." Emily clutched the paper to her chest. Her heart was racing now, blood roaring in her ears. The image on that paper, there was no mistaking it. It was her sister, Anna. But Anna had died 30 years ago, or so she had always been told. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. The drawing sat on the kitchen table, staring back at her like a ghost in ink and color. Her sister Anna, gone for 3 decades, was somehow alive again through a man's memory and a child's crayons. She couldn't ignore it. She had to confront him. By morning, Emily was standing on the front porch of Mr. Caleb's house, heart pounding. She knocked twice. No answer. On the third knock, the door creaked open. Caleb, gray-haired and soft-spoken, blinked behind his glasses. "Emily," he said, surprised. "Everything all right?" She didn't wait. She held up the drawing with shaking hands. "Where did you see her, this woman? Did you know her?" Caleb's eyes fixed on the drawing. For a long moment he said nothing. Then his shoulders sagged, and he nodded slowly. "Her name was Anna," he said quietly. "We were in love a long time ago." Emily's voice cracked. "She was my sister." Caleb looked up sharply. "Your sister?" "They told me she died in an accident when I was a child." Caleb's face went pale. "No, they told me she left, that she was ill and needed to be kept away, and then I never saw her again." A stunned silence fell between them. Caleb's hand trembled as he opened the door wider. "Emily, there's something you should see." And for the first time in 30 years, the truth began to crack open. Caleb led Emily into his modest living room. Canvases leaned against the walls, some finished, others half done. The smell of paint and turpentine hung in the air. He walked slowly to an old wooden drawer, tugged it open, and retrieved a worn, yellowed envelope. "I found this yesterday," he said. "Tucked behind the drawer, I must have hidden it years ago and forgotten. After Lily gave me the crayons, I felt something, like a pull to look." He handed the envelope to Emily. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a folded letter. The handwriting was unmistakable, elegant and delicate. Anna's. Caleb, if you're reading this, then something went wrong. I don't know if I'll ever see you again, but please believe me, I didn't leave you. I was taken. I never stopped loving you. Emily gasped. Taken? Caleb sat down slowly, as if the weight of the words pressed on his chest. I never knew. I thought she moved on or lost interest, but she was trying to come back. Emily clutched the letter. Why would our parents lie about her death? Why send her away? Neither of them had the answer. But now they both knew. Anna hadn't disappeared. She had been hidden, and someone wanted her to stay forgotten. The next day, Emily couldn't focus. Her mind kept returning to the letter, to Anna's words, I was taken. After dropping Lily off at school, she drove to her childhood home on the edge of town. The old house stood the same, except lonelier now, ever since their parents had passed 5 years earlier. She hadn't been inside since the funeral. The key still worked. Dust floated in the air as she stepped in. The silence was heavy, as if the walls still held secrets. Emily made her way to the basement. Her father had always kept it locked, and growing up, she had never been allowed inside. Now, the padlock was gone. She descended the creaky steps, the dim bulb flickering above her. In the corner, under a stained tarp, she found an old trunk. She opened it with a deep breath. Inside were faded journals, photographs, and medical documents. She flipped through them. Her hands trembled. All the papers were about Anna. Institutional records, behavioral assessments, forced admittance papers signed by her father. Emily's breath caught. Anna hadn't been sick. She had been silenced, locked away under the excuse of mental instability, just for loving someone the family didn't approve of. She sank to the floor, eyes wet. Her parents hadn't just lied, they had erased her sister. Emily returned to Caleb's house with the documents clutched tightly in her hands. Her voice shook as she shared what she'd found. Caleb listened in silence, jaw clenched, his eyes filled with quiet rage. They locked her away, Emily said, just because she loved you. Caleb swallowed hard. She always said your parents didn't approve of me. I never imagined they'd go that far. He stood and walked over to a tall shelf by the window. There's something else, he said, pulling down an old, leather-bound sketchbook. Anna gave this to me before she disappeared. I haven't opened it in years. He flipped through the pages. Portraits of wildflowers, cityscapes, and then, near the end, a sketch of a small cottage by a lake. In the corner, Anna had written, "Someday I'll come back here." Emily leaned in. That place looks familiar. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through old photos of family vacations. There it was, the same lake, the same cottage. Caleb met her eyes. Do you think she made it out? Emily's voice was barely a whisper. There's only one way to find out. The drive to the lake was long and quiet. Emily and Caleb didn't speak much, each lost in thoughts of what they might find. The cottage sat tucked among tall pines, weathered but standing, its white paint faded to gray. Emily stepped out first, heart-pounding. The air smelled of pine and old memories. Caleb walked behind her, holding the sketchbook close. The front door was unlocked. Inside, dust coated every surface, but the space was oddly preserved. A blanket folded on the couch. Books stacked by the window. A teacup still resting on the kitchen counter, as if waiting for someone to return. On the mantel, Emily saw something that made her breath hitch. A framed photo of Anna. Older, but unmistakable. Beside her stood a boy, around 10 years old, with Caleb's eyes. Caleb stared, frozen. That's my son? Emily covered her mouth in shock. She had a child? A rustle outside made them both turn sharply. Footsteps, then a soft voice behind them. Who are you? They turned to see a teenage boy in the doorway, cautious but curious. And suddenly, everything changed. Emily and Caleb stared at the boy in stunned silence. He looked about 16, tall, lean, with dark curls and sharp eyes that mirrored Caleb's so clearly it left no room for doubt. I live here, the boy said, stepping inside cautiously. My name's Ethan. Who are you? Caleb's voice was hoarse. Ethan, I think I'm your father. The boy froze. What? Emily stepped in gently. We're not here to hurt you, Ethan. We didn't know you existed until today. This cottage, it belonged to Anna. At the name, Ethan's eyes softened. My mom. She died when I was 10. I've been on my own since. Caleb sat down, overwhelmed. She never told me. I thought she was gone. Ethan looked confused, guarded. She said people tried to keep her from the people she loved, that she had to disappear to protect me. I never knew from who. Emily opened her bag and pulled out the letter, the sketchbook, the documents, proof of the stolen years. Ethan stared at them in silence. Finally, he whispered, So, my whole life has been a lie? Emily's heart broke. No, Ethan, your life is the key to uncovering the truth. And now, with Ethan, the past was no longer buried. It was waking up. The three of them sat in the quiet cottage, the lake shimmering through the windows. Ethan flipped slowly through Anna's sketchbook, eyes tracing every pencil line like it might bring her back. I still hear her voice sometimes, he said softly. She used to tell me stories about a man who loved her once. She never said his name. Caleb looked away, blinking back tears. Ethan stood and walked to a small cabinet near the fireplace. There's one more thing. I've never played it. I was too scared. He pulled out an old cassette tape labeled For My Son, Someday. Caleb gently took it from his hands, and with a bit of effort managed to find an old tape player nearby. They pressed play. Anna's voice crackled to life. Ethan, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone. But I need you to know, you were born out of love. I ran because I had no choice. They would have taken you too. The tape skipped, then continued. One day, you'll meet the man who looks at you with your own eyes. He's your father, and he never stopped waiting. Ethan's breath caught. Caleb was crying now, silent tears sliding down his cheeks. The truth was no longer hiding. It was speaking. The following morning, Emily sat alone on the cottage porch, watching the lake shimmer in the early light. Caleb and Ethan were inside, finally beginning to talk. Slow, cautious, but real. Her thoughts swirled. The letter, the sketchbook, the tape, everything Anna had left behind spoke of fear, but also of hope. Still, something didn't add up. Why had Anna stayed hidden if her parents, their parents, were gone for years now? Why didn't she come back? Driven by instinct, Emily searched the cottage more thoroughly. In the corner of Anna's small bedroom, under a loose floorboard, she found a tin box. Inside it were old newspaper clippings, scraps of notes, and a second letter. This one wasn't addressed to Ethan or Caleb. It was addressed to Emily. If you ever find this, it means I wasn't strong enough to face you. I'm sorry. I wanted to come home so many times, but someone was watching. I was threatened, told you'd suffer if I returned. I didn't know who I could trust, so I stayed away, not because I didn't love you, but because I did. Emily's eyes widened. Someone had been keeping Anna in fear all those years. A name was scribbled at the bottom of the page. Sloppy, faded, but clear enough. Stephen M. Emily's heart raced. Stephen was their father's oldest friend, a man who'd always been around during their childhood, trusted, respected, and possibly the one who made Anna disappear. She clutched the letter tightly. The web wasn't fully untangled yet. Anna's story wasn't just about love, it was about betrayal. And now, Emily was ready to confront it. Emily stood outside Stephen Monroe's estate, an elegant home on the edge of town. It had always seemed grand, safe. Now, it felt cold. She hadn't seen Stephen since her parents' funeral. He'd spoken kindly then, like family. But now, all she could hear was Anna's voice whispering through the letter. I was threatened. With Caleb beside her and Ethan waiting in the car, Emily knocked. Stephen answered, older now, but still sharp-eyed. His smile faltered when he saw them. Emily, Caleb, this is unexpected. We need to talk, Emily said firmly. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Emily pulled out the letter and placed it on the table. Stephen didn't read it. He just stared. You know what this is, Emily said. You kept her away. You told her she'd endanger us. Stephen's expression shifted, a crack in the polished surface. You don't understand. Your father. He wanted to protect the family name. Anna was going to ruin everything. I only did what he asked. Emily's voice trembled with fury. You told her we'd be hurt if she came back. Stephen exhaled. Because we were being watched. Your father had enemies, powerful ones. I thought I was saving you all. By destroying her life? Silence. Finally, Caleb spoke. You stole decades from us. Stephen looked away, aged by the truth. I regret it, he said quietly, but it's too late to fix. No, Emily said, rising. It's not too late. She left the letter on the table, and as they walked away, for the first time, the weight of their family's past began to lift. But the final piece of the story had yet to surface, and it was waiting in the most unexpected place. Back at the cottage, Ethan was quiet, watching ripples stretch across the lake. Emily and Caleb sat beside him, still shaken from what Stephen had revealed. Why didn't she just tell someone? Ethan asked. Why write everything and leave it hidden? Emily's heart ached. Maybe she was waiting for the right person to find it. That night, while Ethan slept, Caleb explored the attic. Dust coated old boxes, but something in the far corner caught his eye. A locked chest with Anna's initials carved faintly into the wood. Inside, wrapped in a silk scarf, was a journal. He brought it downstairs and the three of them opened it together the next morning. Page after page, Anna's neat handwriting told her truth. The love story with Caleb, the night she tried to run away, how Stephen intercepted her, warned her of mysterious threats, and convinced her that returning would put everyone she loved in danger. But the last pages changed everything. Years passed. No one ever came for me. I began to wonder, were the threats ever real? Or was I just erased to protect pride, image, and lies? To Ethan, if you're reading this, you are my brave boy. I hope someone finally gave you the truth. Tears rolled down Ethan's cheeks. Caleb placed a hand on his shoulder. Emily looked out at the lake, Anna's voice echoing in her heart. They now knew everything, and justice, long delayed, was now theirs to carry forward. But one final decision remained. Should they let the world know, or let the truth rest with them? A week later, the town hall was packed. What was meant to be a quiet life for Ethan had become something else, something bigger. Emily stood at the podium, the journal in her hands. Caleb and Ethan sat beside her. She looked out at the crowd, reporters, neighbors, old family friends. Even Stephen Monroe sitting in the back, his face unreadable. I never imagined I'd be standing here telling a story that was hidden for 30 years, Emily began, voice steady. "But the truth deserves to be known." She spoke of Anna, of her forced disappearance, of the lies told to protect reputation and silence love. She read passages from the journal, her sister's voice finally heard aloud. The crowd listened in stunned silence. When she finished, Caleb stepped forward. "Anna lost her voice in this world. We speak for her now, not to shame, but to heal. This truth belongs to all of us." Then Ethan stood. "I never knew where I came from. Now I do. My mother was brave, and I'm proud to be her son." A hush fell. Then applause, slow, rising, heartfelt. Later, under the evening sky, the three of them stood by the lake, where it all began. Caleb placed the sketchbook and journal in a wooden box. Together they buried it near the cottage. "She's home now," Emily whispered. "And she's free," Ethan said. The past had once stolen their family, but the crayons, the drawing, the courage of a child's small gesture had uncovered something stronger than lies. It had uncovered love. And now a new chapter could begin, one written not in secrets, but in light.